What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the World According to Briggs and a video that's very personal to me. I'll explain later. Today we look at states with the highest cancer rate. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States, coming only behind heart disease. 1 out of every 4 deaths in the US is from cancer. Cancer is a disease that occurs when abnormal cells divide and begin to destroy body tissue. Cancer can affect nearly any part of the body. I'm sure all of us have been touched by cancer. Maybe you had it, maybe a friend or family member had it. Almost all of us, in some way or another, it's affected our lives. Today we're looking at the states with the highest cancer rates, according to the CDC. All right, let's see what we got. Number 10, Arkansas. At number 10, we have a frequent guest on our list, the natural state, Arkansas. Look at the bright side, Arkansas. You aren't at the number 1 spot of a negative list. One of the number 1 factors that contribute to cancer is obesity. Arkansas has a lot of obesity. They're actually the 3rd most obese state in the union. The number 1 type of cancer in Arkansas is bladder cancer. Arkansas has a cancer rate of 471.4 per every 100,000 residents. To give you an idea of how bad that is, the state with the absolute lowest cancer rate is South Dakota with 49.6 for every 100,000 residents. Number 9, Maine. Who saw this one coming? You never see Maine on negative lists. It just doesn't happen unless we're talking about the cold or something like that. Most everything about Maine is very positive. But Maine has a lot of lung cancer diagnosis. Tobacco use is the leading risk factor for lung cancer. Smoking and secondhand smoke both have been shown to cause lung cancer. The smoking rate in Maine is 17.8% of the population. That's a lot. Significantly higher than the national rate of 15%. The cancer rate in Maine is 471.6 cases for every 100,000 residents. Number 8, Minnesota. Luckily for Minnesota, frostbite and hypothermia aren't cancers, because if they were, they'd be at the top of this list and blowing everyone out of the water. Minnesota is cold. Minnesota also has a lot of cancer diagnosis. Minnesota sees a odd number of colorectal cancer. They're pretty high numbers when it comes to breast cancer too, but colorectal compared to other states, it's a little high here. Minnesota's cancer rate is 472.3 cancer diagnosis for every 100,000 residents. Number 7, New Hampshire. That is 2 New England states on a negative list. That almost never happens. The leading cancers in New Hampshire are breast and prostate cancer. This one's not a cancer, but while I was doing the research for this, I realized they have a very high rate of COPD, which affects the lungs. It doesn't turn into lung cancer, but it does affect the lungs. New Hampshire's cancer rate is 473.6 for every 100,000 residents. Number 6, Nebraska. The Cornhusker state gets their fair share of cancer diagnosis. This one sort of surprised me. Nebraska is a very rural state. Rural people aren't out in poor air quality. They're not eating a lot of processed foods, things like that. They're usually hardworking people, which kind of translates to exercise, which helps bring down your cancer rate. But here they are at number 6. The 2 leading types of cancer in Nebraska are breast and prostate cancer. Nebraska has 477.3 cancer diagnosis for every 100,000 residents. Number 5, Louisiana. This one does not surprise me at all. If you ever visit Louisiana, you will see these people eat some pretty unhealthy stuff. It's delicious, don't get me wrong. But once you get past grits and maybe steamed crawfish, this place, everything's deep fried. On top of that, they do some pretty heavy drinking in this state, and they are officially one of the most obese states we have in this country. The Pelican State is number 3 when it comes to overweight high school students, and they're ranked 8th when it comes to tobacco use. 23% of the state actually smokes. The national average is about 16%. 61 out of every 100,000 residents will get lung cancer in Louisiana. But the overall cancer rate in Louisiana is 478.6 for every 100,000 residents. Number 4, New York State. Cancer rates tend to be a little bit higher in large cities. New York City is one of the largest ones we have on the planet. I looked at some of the cities for upstate New York, and their cancer rates weren't as high as the state as a whole. So that tells me a lot of their numbers will come from New York City, where a large portion of their people live. I mean, hang out in New York City long enough, you're bound to pick something up. Last time I was there, it's been a couple years. I mean, before Tesla and everyone else started making electric cars, you could literally taste the exhaust in the city. It was pretty bad. bad. It was summer and there was no wind the last time I was there, and I just noticed that it's like the whole place smelled like car exhaust. New York State has pretty high numbers in breast, prostate, and lung cancer. It's actually 132.8 for every 100,000 residents will get breast cancer in New York State. Prostate's 125 for every 100,000 residents, and lung cancer is 68 for every 100,000 residents. New York's overall cancer rate is 480.6 for every 100,000 residents. Number 3, West Virginia. If you know anything about the history of West Virginia and the industries that have flourished there in the past, you should expect this one. I'm surprised they're not higher. West Virginia, they smoke a lot and they work in coal mines. Not as much as they used to. The coal industry is kind of scaling back, so a lot of them are out of work. But in the past decades, tons of the residents here have worked in the coal industry. Breathing in coal dust does nothing for your health. 12% of the population of West Virginia actually believes smoking is good for you, compared to the national average of 2%. If you're one of the people that actually thinks smoking is good for you when you smoke, think to yourself, have you ever, smoked a half a pack and then thought to yourself, you know what? I think I'd like to go for a run. No. You know you can't go for a run. So the number 1 cancer in West Virginia is lung cancer. Other states, it'll be like 150 for every 100,000 residents will get lung cancer, maybe even 200. In West Virginia, 2,020 new cases for every 100,000 residents. That's brutal. They also are killing it with breast cancer, no pun intended. New cases for breast cancer are 1,610 for every 100,000 residents. The overall in West Virginia is 482.4 for every 100,000 residents will be diagnosed with lung cancer. Number 2, New Jersey. This is another one. If you know much about New Jersey, it won't shock you. New Jersey isn't a very large state. It's actually ranked 47th in total area. The only ones smaller are Connecticut, Delaware, and Rhode Island, and if you count District of Columbia, that's obviously smaller. Yet they still have the most Superfund sites. If you don't know what a Superfund site, it's areas that were kind of closed off by the government because they're filled with toxic whatever. New Jersey has around 100 Superfund sites currently. They've already cleaned up 36 and taken them off the list. So at one point they had over 140. These, as you can imagine, didn't do anything good for the people and their health. For decades, it was standard practice to dump waste on the ground in rivers or just leave it in the open in New Jersey. Actually, this is all states, but New Jersey was unchecked for quite a while. As a result, thousands of uncontrolled or abandoned contaminated sites were created. In response to the growing concern, the 96th Congress established the Superfund program in 1980 to clean up all these sites, not just New Jersey. Now that was in 1980. It's 2021 and they've only cleaned up 36 out of about 140 in New Jersey. California and Texas don't have nearly as many, and they're 3 times as large, probably more than that. 4 or 5 times as large. The most common cancers in New Jersey are breast and prostate cancer. The overall cancer rate in New Jersey is 482.4 for every 100,000 residents. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we got another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. We'd love it if you check it out. Also, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Kentucky. Kentucky in general is a very unhealthy state. Let's start off with high school kids. That's the first stat you come across. Obesity in high school students, they're ranked 4th. The national average is about 15%. They're 21%. When it comes to smoking in high school, they're number 2. 15% of high school students smoke in Kentucky, only 9% nationally. And then even above that, they're number 2 when it comes to adult tobacco use, with 24% of the adult population smoking. And when it comes to adults and obesity, they're 5th, with 37% of the population of Kentucky being overweight adults. It should be no surprise that their number 1 form of cancer is lung cancer. The overall cancer rate in Kentucky is 510.2 for every 100,000 residents. All of the states up to Kentucky were relatively close, going from 471.4 up to 482.4, and then they blow them out of the water, almost 30 above number 2. What is going on in Kentucky? Alright, that's today's video, and like I said, I'll explain why this means something to me. In 1997, my mom passed away of lung cancer. She'd been a smoker most of her life. She'd quit probably about 4 or 5 years before she got diagnosed. Sort of freaks me out to know that I'm now older than my mom ever was. Stay healthy, everyone. Get your cancer screening test, talk to your doctor, whatever you gotta do. Cancer screening is very important. The sooner the better, especially guys out there, and get your prostate exam. Women, please get the mammogram. All right, everyone have a great day. Be nice to each other.